Chapter 381, Out of Options. Master God Diviner gritted his teeth in hesitation for a moment before continuing, Junior Patriarch, I'm leaving too. If we all stick around here, we'll never solve the problem of being hungry. Look, why don't you? At the sudden realization that everyone was apparently planning to go their own way, Bai Xiaochun shot to his feet. Don't go, guys, you are my Dao protectors, I brought you here with me. What am I supposed to do if you all leave? What was especially terrifying was the realization that the spirit stones the sect had given him were almost all gone. The fact that everyone was leaving at that point was what hurt the most. I brought you here with me. You are supposed to take care of me. Despite his protestations, Song Ke simply snorted coldly, then turned and left. His plan was to go on some missions to earn the resources he needed to take care of himself. Care, Bai Xiaochun called after him. However, Song Ke didn't even look over his shoulder. As for Master God Diviner, he was getting ready to leave too, but Bai Xiaochun reached out and grabbed his arm. Chapter 382, Ultra Fasting 8 Pill. Even if some disastrous things happen as a result, I don't care. Things are already bad enough as it is. What do I have to be scared of? I'm gonna concoct some sort of medicine that prevents hunger long term. In fact, I already came up with a name for it. Ultra Fasting 8 Pill. Eyes bloodshot, he slapped his bag of holding, producing a pill furnace, as well as some flame stones. Taking a deep breath to calm himself, he devoted all of his thoughts to the Ultra Fasting 8 Pill he wanted to concoct. Some people in the world perform better under more pressure, and Bai Xiaochun was just that type of person. In fact, he was extraordinary even among people like that. The truth was that surviving in this city wasn't as hard as Bai Xiaochun imagined it to be, especially for gold core cultivators. In fact, it was relatively simple. All he had to do was take on a few relatively dangerous missions every once in a while, or do smaller, easier missions on a daily basis. Using either of those methods, it would only take a year or two to save up enough merit points to become a yellow robe disciple and be promoted to the Rainbow District. Of course, it would require a bit of frugality, but it was nothing undoable. But Bai Xiaochun didn't like danger, and didn't want to do any missions. Only when he was so hungry that he could hardly see straight did the pressure build to the point where he finally exploded with creativity and innovation. For the following 4 days, he didn't rest or sleep. He ate what little food he had left, and even nibbled on some spirit plants, until finally, the pill formula for his Ultra Fasting 8 Pill came to be complete in his mind. My Ultra Fasting 8 Pill will be a concentration of the quintessence of heaven and earth. Upon consuming it, one will receive temporary replenishment, will be relieved from the pressure caused by the draining of ordinary energy, and will even find that the spiritual power inside of their body has become gentler and easier to work with. Bai Xiaochun was trembling with excitement, and although he was now quite gaunt, his eyes were shining brightly. Having completed the Ultra Fasting 8 Pill formula, he immediately began to concoct. 6 hours later, his first batch appeared, and although it only contained 3 pills, the mere odor emanating from them caused Bai Xiaochun's hunger to lessen. Ha ha ha, I really am a genius. It worked. My Ultra Fasting 8 Pill worked. Surging with excitement, he took the 3 pills out of the furnace, and was just about to consume them when he hesitated, and thought back to all the bizarre and strange things which had happened in the past when he had concocted medicine. Maybe it would be better to do some tests. Gritting his teeth, he left his spirit abode, sold a few medicinal plants to get some merit points, and then went and bought a spirit chicken. Back in his spirit abode, he gave one of the Ultra Fasting 8 Pills to the spirit chicken, then carefully watched to see what happened. After a full day passed, he was convinced that nothing had gone wrong, and that the spirit chicken was fine. At that point, his eyes blazed with excitement. Looks like I really did succeed. He threw his head back and laughed uproariously, then went to work on the next batch. Before long, he had several dozen Ultra Fasting 8 Pills. Now that I think about it, it would be a waste for me to consume these pills myself. I actually like spirit food a lot better than medicinal pills. After some thought, he decided to try to sell some of the pills. Filled with anticipation, he left the spirit abode yet again. Instead of trying to sell the pills to one particular shop or another, he went to one of the busiest public squares in the East District of the city, and after spending a bit of time, found a suitable location to set up a vendor's stand. After placing 3 pill bottles onto the stand, each of which containing a single pill, he sent some power from his cultivation base into a jade slip, causing it to send bright, multicolored light shining up into the air above him. Immediately, 4 brightly glowing characters could be seen. Ultra Fasting 8 Pill. With that, he settled down to wait for customers. It didn't take long. After all, the term Ultra Fasting 8 Pill was quite eye-catching. Before long, people began to gather around him. Ultra Fasting 8 Pill? I have never heard of that medicinal pill before. Considering how things work in Sky City, I almost can't believe this guy dares to sell a Fasting 8 Pill. He's either a con artist or a psycho. HMPH. Fasting 8 pills don't do any good here. More and more people gathered and began to discuss the matter, but no one was willing to buy a pill. That was even more so considering that Bai Xiaochun's quoted price was 100 merit points. Bai Xiaochun soon got nervous, and was even starting to consider dropping the price. However, that was when a certain cultivator appeared in the crowd. He was currently gaunt, but considering his height, he had obviously once been very muscular. Furthermore, he had a cold gleam in his eyes, and a murderous aura that anyone could detect. He wasn't alone, either. Walking along next to him was a young boy with a waxen face and listless eyes. As soon as the big man appeared, the gathered crowd went silent, and many of them even backed up a bit. Apparently, they recognized him, and didn't dare to do anything to offend him. Ultra fasting 8 pill, 100 merit points, huh? The big man's eyes narrowed as he looked at one of the pill bottles, then back at Bai Xiaochun. Because of the way that everyone in the city suppressed their cultivation bases, it was impossible for the man to determine Bai Xiaochun's cultivation level. However, based on his judgment, he placed him at foundation establishment or higher. Eyes glittering coldly, he said, if this thing really works, then it would definitely be worth 100 merit points. But, if it doesn't, then you'll either pay me back tenfold, or I'll teach you a lesson you won't forget for a long time. Before Bai Xiaochun could even react, he reached out, grabbed one of the pill bottles and crushed it, then tossed the medicinal pill to his child. The boy morosely opened his mouth and swallowed the pill. Of course, everyone was watching closely to see what would happen. As for Bai Xiaochun, his expression was the same as ever, but inside, his nervousness was mounting, although it wasn't because of the big man. From what he could tell, the man was only in the great circle of foundation establishment, and Bai Xiaochun knew that he could stomp the man in a fight even if he were hungrier than he already was. What had him nervous was his uncertainty about how effective the pill would be. As everyone looked on, the boy's expression suddenly flickered. His eyes opened, and he began to shake visibly, causing the audience to crane their necks to see what would happen next. Gradually, the onlookers' eyes began to widen, and then cries of disbelief and shock began to ring out. What's going on? Heavens, I can't believe this ultra-fasting 8 pill actually works. How is this possible? As such exclamations continued to fill the air, the young boy's gaunt frame suddenly began to fill in with flesh. Within only a few breaths of time, he was the picture of a healthy boy. He was even a bit chubby. Gasps and cries of astonishment could be heard in all directions. As for the big man who had bought the pill, he was shaking, and his eyes began to shine with shock. Immortal medicine. That's immortal medicine. The man quickly reached out to grab the remaining 2 bottles, but before he could, Bai Xiaochun leveled a cold gaze at him. The man's mind filled with rumbling sounds, and his hand lurched to a halt. As of this moment, a sensation of deadly crisis had filled him, and something inside of him was telling him that if he dared to try to steal the pill bottles, he would be struck dead instantly. I painstakingly concocted these pills with undying wheatgrass, Bai Xiaochun said coolly. It's very expensive. I only offered it up for 100 merit points because I knew that nobody would be interested or even trust that they were real. As of this moment, these pills cost 300 merit points each. The big man took a deep breath and said, fine, 900 merit points for the first pill plus these 2. Without any hesitation, he pulled out a jade slip and transferred 900 merit points to Bai Xiaochun. Then he grabbed the pills and hurried off. Although everyone else in the crowd wished they could have bought the pills, nobody was able to do anything. That was when Bai Xiaochun cleared his throat and produced 3 more bottles from his bag of holding. In the time it takes an incense stick to burn, he sold 30 ultra-fasting 8 pills. Only after all of the pills had been snatched up did he put away his vendor's stand, and then stroll off proudly, hands clasped behind his back. HMMMMPH. Master God Diviner schemed his way out of the group, but little did he know that Bai Xiaochun could casually come up with 9,000 merit points with almost no effort. The sight of so many merit points in his identity medallion filled his heart with complete satisfaction. Right now, I'm a red-robed disciple, which means I have to spend 100,000 merit points to become an orange-robed disciple. However, to leave Sky City and fly up to the Rainbow District, I need to become a yellow-robed disciple, which costs 1 million merit points. That's not very much. Feeling very proud of himself, he rubbed his belly and then hurried to a nearby spirit food restaurant. After buying enough food for 5 people, he began to stuff himself, simultaneously contemplating how wonderful life was. Filled to bursting, he returned to his spirit abode and began to concoct more medicine. Master God Diviner, he said piteously, I won't call you Master Snot anymore, okay? Don't go, Junior Patriarch, I don't have any other choice. Before coming here, none of us had any idea that merely staying alive in the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect would be so difficult. I think I'll go start performing some divinations to get some food to eat. Although his words were chosen well, inside, he was furious, and at the same time, couldn't stop thinking about how much he missed the river-defying sect. Shaking himself out of Bai Xiaochun's grip, he left the spirit abode and was gone in a flash. I can't believe you people, Bai Xiaochun said angrily. As far as he was concerned, Song Ke and Master God Diviner were being completely unreasonable. If they had gone out on their own earlier, it might have been tolerable, but instead, they waited until he ran out of spirit stones to abandon him. Even as Bai Xiaochun stood there fuming, Chen Minyao sighed and stood up. Looking over at Bai Xiaochun, she said, this is my fault for not getting complete information. Junior Patriarch, I'm going to go look for some friends of mine. If destiny will have it, we'll meet again in the Rainbow District. Without giving Bai Xiaochun a chance to respond, she flew out of the spirit abode. Chen Minyao's sudden departure pushed Bai Xiaochun toward the brink of madness. After all, she had come to him to ask to join the party, and now here she was just throwing him to the wayside. Thankfully, he could console himself with the fact that Zhu Bokai and Big Fatty Zhang were staying behind. HMPH. Fine, if they want to go, let them go. At least eldest brother and little treasure have some loyalty. Looking over at them, he slapped his chest and said, "Look you two, don't worry, I'll." However, that was when Zhu Bokai rose awkwardly to his feet. Junior Patriarch, hey, what are you doing? Sit back down. Heart pounding, Bai Xiaochun was just getting ready to physically block Zhu Bokai's path, when he noticed the look of determination in his eyes, as well as the tears. Junior Patriarch, he pled, let me go, please. I don't want to die of starvation. Look at me, I'm the weakest of all of us, and I'm already skin and bones. If things keep going like this, I'm going to be the first one to die. Show me mercy, I beg of you. Let me go, please, Junior Patriarch. He even started tugging at Bai Xiaochun's sleeve. The anger faded from Bai Xiaochun's face, and he sighed. Alright, everyone has the right to pick their own path. Leave if you want. Many thanks, Junior Patriarch. Eyes filled with gratitude, Zhu Bokai fled the spirit abode. As soon as he was outside, he caught sight of Master God Diviner off in the distance. The two of them exchanged a glance, then joined together and headed off into the city, chuckling. Looking quite proud of himself, Master God Diviner produced a chunk of spirit meat from his bag of holding and started munching on it as he said, Sonke has pretty high ambitions and isn't very flexible. I bet he really did think that he was in a bad position. We're different though. Finally, we're free from the clutches of evil. Zhu Bokai hesitated for a moment, then produced a similar chunk of spirit meat. After taking a bite, he said, Are you sure this is a good idea though? After all, we're still technically Dao protectors. Clearly, the two of them had quite a collection of resources built up. After all, for the past several days, all of the food they'd been eating had been provided by Bai Xiaochun. Master God Diviner hesitated for a moment. After a bit of thought, he said, There's nothing we can do about that. If we had stayed back there, we would still have gone hungry eventually anyway, what with the Junior Patriarch's way of handling things. Don't worry, let's take care of ourselves first, and then we can meet back up with him when we get to the Rainbow District. After a bit more chatting regarding their plans, the two of them headed off into the city to find their own place to stay. As of this point, the only people left in the spirit abode were Bai Xiaochun and Big Fatty Zhang. Big Fatty Zhang looked at Bai Xiaochun standing there in anger, then sighed and closed his eyes to meditate. Despite Bai Xiaochun's rage, there was nothing he could do about the situation. At least he had Big Fatty Zhang there to accompany him. However, the next day, not even Big Fatty Zhang could take it any longer. When evening fell, he walked over to Bai Xiaochun and said, Ninth Fatty. Bai Xiaochun instantly started to get nervous. Eldest brother, are you? Ninth Fatty, it's not that your eldest brother doesn't care about you. If things keep going like this, I'm gonna die. I'll go out to perform some spirit enhancements. Don't worry, Ninth Fatty, after I get some money built up, I'll come back and take care of you. Big Fatty Zhang had clearly made his mind up, and Bai Xiaochun didn't say anything to try to change his mind. Big Fatty Zhang clapped Bai Xiaochun on the shoulder, then took a deep breath, his eyes gleaming as if he had accepted a holy mission. With that, he walked out of the spirit abode. Bai Xiaochun was the only person left. As the sun slowly sank down over the horizon, he stood outside the door looking more lonesome than ever. Finally, he let out a long sigh. Gone. They've all gone. Crestfallen, he walked back into the spirit abode and sat down, his hunger growing. What am I supposed to do? I'm so hungry. Considering that night was falling, he finally went out and used some of his dwindling spirit stone savings to buy some more spirit food. Then he looked around at all the red-robed disciples hurrying here and there on various missions. Although some of the missions were dangerous, considering that Bai Xiaochun's cultivation base was in the gold core level, they wouldn't pose any threat to him. However, the rewards for accomplishing such missions were small. Based on his calculations, doing missions to survive would require him to do them almost all day every day. That was mostly because the high level of his cultivation base meant that the drain on his body was even more noticeable. And of course, the missions with bigger rewards were the ones that were more dangerous. Despite putting some thought to it, he couldn't come up with any good ideas. Sighing, he went back to his spirit abode. Back inside, the little turtle finally woke up and stuck his head out of Bai Xiaochun's bag of holding. He looked at Bai Xiaochun suspiciously, clearly wondering why he had been asleep so long. However, Bai Xiaochun wasn't in any mood to pay attention to him. Seeing how he was being ignored, the turtle's suspicions faded, and he disappeared back into the bag of holding. A few more days passed. Bai Xiaochun went out into the city a few times to try to get inspiration for what to do. He completely suppressed his cultivation base, ensuring that no fluctuations whatsoever emerged from him, which also reduced the drain on his body. However, no matter how many ideas he came up with, he found that there were already people in the city using those methods to earn merit points. Trying to compete with them would be pointless. He even tried to find some unique missions at the missions office suited to his style, but there were simply too many disciples there looking for missions. By this point, he knew exactly why all of the people he had seen in the city were always thin and in a hurry, and also had such strange cultivation bases. The pressure weighing down on them on a daily basis created something like an instinct. Because of the interference of the spiritual power, it was impossible to see who was powerful and who was weak. Don't tell me that a majestic gold core cultivator like me is actually going to starve to death, he lamented. He was getting to the point that he was so hungry he couldn't take it. His bag of holding was now completely devoid of spirit stones, and he was almost out of food. Soon, he would have nothing left to eat other than spirit plants. Of course, he had plenty of those, because he was always equipped with numerous ingredients with which to concoct medicine. However, even if he sold them all, the merit points they would earn would vanish just as quickly as his spirit stones. I can't keep going on like this, or I'm going to die. This starry sky Dao polarity sect is just too wicked. I can't believe they treat their disciples so harshly. I'm a gold core expert. I'm an important political hostage. Don't they even care that I'm starving to death? Depressed, he even considered resorting to theft. However, the punishment for theft in the starry sky Dao polarity sect was so severe that he quickly abandoned such thoughts. Alright, I'm out of options. I guess I'm going to have to use my best skill to solve this problem. I'm going to concoct medicine.